Welcome back, my phantoms. PhantoMask here. I have a good collection of horror stories just for you. If you like this kind of content, subscribe and turn notification on. Don't forget to turn CC on to read along with the stories. Without further ado, let me creep you out. Story number 1. Night when I was about 12 or 13, my parents were gone for a while and I was just staying up really late, past midnight, on my desktop computer waiting for them to come home. Like most people, I had been told a million times not to talk to strangers on the internet, but about half my friends list on MSN were people I had never met before, so I was just chatting with a bunch of them. Out of nowhere, one of my online friends had told me exactly what I had been doing the past hour or two. For example, what I was eating, drinking, playing with, when I had gotten up last. Things I hadn't mentioned in chat. I instantly got a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. My desktop was set up in front of a big window, so as far as I knew, this person I had been talking to, that was supposed to live in a different country than me, had found my address and been watching me through the window. Turns out, he had somehow hacked into my webcam. I always left it plugged in even though I had been warned not to when I wasn't using it, and had been frequently watching me through it whenever he wanted. It's been 10 years and I still have all the cameras on my devices covered in thick duct tape. Story number 2. Was about 8 and I was taking the trash outside after the sun went down, when a hand reached from the side of our back deck and grabbed my leg trying to yank me. I screamed very loud and they let go and I ran inside. Story number 3. I was a kid, around 10 years old, and I was babysitting my 7-year-old sister. We grew up near an insane asylum, and every now and then we'd get an escapee in our yard. They'd walk off the grounds, and head through the woods toward the nearest big town. They'd get about a mile to our place and realize walking 40 miles to that town was probably not happening. So they'd ask to use the phone to call and get picked up by the hospital. This happened every now and then, but this was the first time it happened when I was home without my folks. The woman who arrived in our driveway wanted me to call the hospital to pick her up. But she also asked me if I had some matches, presumably to light a cigarette. I ushered my sister into the house and locked the door as I called. The woman was kind of half screaming / half moaning, "Matches. I need matches." Until they came and picked her up. I'm sure it was just for a cigarette, but it also could have been to burn us alive, so I didn't give her any. Before we continue, I humbly ask you to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Story number 4. I had just moved into my first apartment. It was around 8:30 p.m. and I heard the doorknob moving like someone was putting a key in it and turning and knocking. At first I got really excited that my then boyfriend was home, but then realized it was only 8:30 and he was due home from work around 10:30. So I looked out the kitchen window and didn't see his car or anyone's car I had known parked outside. That's when I panicked. The doorknob kept moving for a few more seconds and then stopped. A few minutes later, they had some piece of metal they were sticking between the door trying to open the door. I freaked out at that point and locked myself in the bathroom with a knife and called 911. They tried to pry the door open for about 3 minutes before they stopped. The police surveyed the area and found an elderly man roaming around with a knife and a crowbar. He used to live in that apartment and he wanted his stuff back that we stole when we moved in. I was told he was really delusional. I'm so thankful and glad I didn't answer the door once I realized it was no one I knew. To this day my heart stops when someone knocks on my door. Story number 5. So this took place in my backyard when I was a kid. My mom had made a tree swing by putting a large log across 2 trees that were split at the top in Y shapes. A rope hung down from the middle of the log and there was a little wooden slab to sit and swing on. I was out there swinging away when suddenly, before I knew what had happened, I was pulled backward and found myself laying on the dirt. I looked up just in time to watch the log that was holding the swing split and came crashing down. I had used this swing a billion times and where I landed wasn't even reachable at maximum swinging capacity. I looked up and no one was around. The feeling of being pulled back is permanently logged in my brain. Story number 6. I live in a cul-de-sac. My bedroom is on the 2nd story. I woke up one night around 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. I knew we were expecting a lot of snow. I looked out the bedroom window to see the accumulation. It was deep. Higher than the curb. Like a white blanket across the cul-de-sac. I decided to get some water, so I walked downstairs, turned on the light, went to the bathroom and got water. Was downstairs maybe 4 minutes. I went back to my bedroom, all lights were out again and I looked at the snow one more time. Within those 4 minutes, there were now fresh footsteps leading from my house, across the cul-de-sac and disappearing behind my neighbor's house. Story number 7. Once I was alone watching TV and the door behind me closed and locked. Story number 8. Lived out in the middle of nowhere surrounded by woods and corn and wheat fields. I was home alone one night and decided to step out on the porch for a cigarette. I'm about halfway done, take another drag and when I blow out the smoke it rolls around a face about a foot away from me. Needless to say I tossed the cigarette and knocked back inside and locked the doors. Story number 9. House sitting / baby sitting for a new neighbor. She was a single mom from the East Coast, moved to Indianapolis. I was a 6th grader. All I had to do was sit in the house and do my math homework while she was on a date. Her 2-year-old baby was sleeping in his crib / room. Around 9 p.m. I get a call and answer. It's some man who only asks, "Who are you?" I say I'm the babysitter. Then he starts asking all these questions about where the mom is and who I am personally. I get scared and hang up and call the mom and let her know. The guy calls back and then just starts saying the address I'm at. Then asks if the baby is okay. When I say yes, he says, "How can you be so sure when he's that close to a window?" To which I just go, "I am just the babysitter and I am trying really hard on my math homework and now I am scared and I am also failing math." Basically a mental breakdown happened. 5 minutes later the mom shows up and explains it's her ex-husband who found her. She hands me a wad of cash and excuses me. If the guy was in the bushes or calling from Massachusetts or what, it was scary. Story number 10. I was laying on the chair with my eyes closed, but I wasn't really asleep. I heard a woman whisper my name in my ear and she told me that I had to get up now. I swear I could feel her breath as she talked. I got up and there was no one there. Story number 11. Was asleep in the living room on my day off when a Suburban came crashing through my kitchen. Dude was drunk and high, had taken his grandfather's Suburban and left a trail of destruction through the neighborhood for 2 blocks. 10+ vehicles hit my house, 2 mailboxes and tore up multiple yards until his SUV was disabled from hitting a Camry. Police ended up busting the window and dragging him out half naked. Story number 12. In fall 2016, I moved into half of a really old house. It was built in the 1880s, a stone's throw from the original campus of Indiana University, which is now a park filled with homeless people and drug addicts. The owners basically turned it into a weird duplex. My friend had lived in it right before I moved in and he claimed that it was haunted, but I didn't really believe him because he was a bit of an odd guy. Anyways, the layout of the house was weird. You walked in the door and were in a living room type space, and then you kept walking and there was a doorway to a bedroom, and past that was the kitchen. No doors, only door inside the apartment was to the bathroom and one that led to the shared basement. So, my first night there was uneventful. I was a little uncomfortable because I hadn't lived by myself in a long time and was just feeling lonely and on edge. I stayed up late and then eventually fell asleep, but I woke up again around 3 in the morning. Cliché, I know. What woke me up was what sounded like a group of drummers were drumming on every flat surface of the living room. It went on for a while, and I was completely terrified. It was just a cacophony of sound. After about 2 or 3 minutes, I finally gathered up the balls to get up and check on it, and as soon as I passed the threshold to the living room it just stopped. Nothing happened the rest of the night, but I didn't get much sleep. Couple days later a friend was visiting and he was about to leave. We were standing by the front door next to my bookshelf and I told him about how I was having trouble sleeping, and the story from the first night. As I was saying this a book threw itself off the bookshelf and onto the floor 3 feet away. It had to fly past the dresser. The shelf was perched and landed between the two of us. He just gave me a creeped out look and said he had to go. I don't blame him. Eventually, I asked the guy in the other half what was up, as he had lived there for 8 years. He told me that no one stayed longer than a year and they all reported the same shit. For whatever reason, he said nothing ever happened on his side. Doesn't make sense, but there it is. Story number 13. This is my sister's story. We laugh about it now cause it's crazy how our parents brushed off how serious this was in hindsight. She had gotten home from high school and was all alone. Some guys came and tapped at the gate. Where I live you do occasionally get people knocking and it will either be Jehovah's Witnesses, or people saying they're raising funds for a recovery program they're in, or lying about being in, or people selling something, that sort of stuff. She couldn't be arsed so she just ignored them as she sat in the living room. After a moment of silence she hears a bang and the garage door rolling up. She runs to the garage and screams as she sees the two guys inside. They had been scoping out houses looking for empty ones to rob. The guys luckily just grabbed the 2 bikes in the garage and booked it. My mom mostly complained about the stolen bikes when she got home, but hey, way better that they took those rusty old things than ransacked the whole house or done something to my sister. To this day, it's why I go to the door when people tap at the gate. I rather tell them no thank you or not right now and have them know the house isn't empty just in case it's someone scoping out homes. Story number 14. When I was about 13 I spent the night over at my cousin's house. We were home alone for the night and stayed up late playing video games. I remember he left the room to use the restroom. I must have been playing something good because I was sitting on the edge of the bed up close to the TV. As I played by myself I felt my cousins come back in the room from behind me and he laid back down on the bed. Gave me a little bounce as if he had jumped on, bed squeak and all. When I turned back to talk to him, he wasn't there. He was still in the restroom. I looked down on the bed where I thought I had felt him and there was an imprint on the bed coming back up, like if someone had been there and were just coming off of it. I have far more stories about that house, but that's definitely one time I felt the most shaken. Story number 15. A couple years ago I was home alone, husband traveling out of state. I put on the news on the Samsung Smart TV in the living room, set the remote on the coffee table and went into the kitchen next room over to make dinner. After a few minutes I noticed I don't hear the sound of the news anymore, and I thought maybe the signal went out or the TV timed out and shut itself off. I come back into the living room and the TV screen is showing a picture of a couch in a living room, my living room. Takes me a minute to realize the camera in my TV has been activated and it's showing a live video of the room. The remotes were still on the table so no chance the dog accidentally stepped on them and pushed buttons or anything. A few days later news broke that Samsung Smart TVs had a hacking issue. Guess the real mystery is how often I was spied on before I put tape over the camera. Thank you for listening my phantoms. If you make it this far make sure to subscribe and turn notification on so you will be updated of my new uploads and check out our playlist for more terrifying stories. Share with a friend who might like this.